So I'm the executive director of the Augustus C. Long Health Sciences Library at Columbia University Medical Center, all those big words. And I hope some of you read In Your Life, Room with the View. Being a librarian, I just couldn't avoid naming my talk Library with the View. And the focus is really on readers. We talk so much about writers. What about the readers? Sometime in the 90s, I was introduced to this small book written by Derek DeSola sometime in the 60s. I'm not going to read this, about this secret hope to get evaluated. When I was reading this book, I was working on a project for the Dean of Research at Harvard Medical School, and she was trying to evaluate basic science departments, like departments of cell biology at Harvard. And she was a former editor of Cell, and she knew exactly what she wanted to do. The only tools we had back then was just EndNote and Web of Science and Excel. And we made it work. And now we have many more tools, and we still have difficult time understanding how to evaluate those researchers. I adopted this formula. And I truly adopted it because I put some parentheses for people who don't know algebra, just like me. And I also did, for perceptions, I multiplied it by 3. And those of you who believe that it needs to be multiplied by more, please do so, because perceptions really rule in this world. And I would say still, the dysfunctions, the perceptions, we can sort of wrap our brain around, and then there is use. What is use? That act of reading. We have all kinds of numbers for use. We have the download statistics, we have the citations, we have the publications, all kinds of things to speak of. And it is still difficult to understand, and I hope you'll bear with me a bit on this. So in my latest library at Columbia, we track all kinds of numbers. So people who come to us look for articles. You see a lot of people having difficult time just locating articles. And it's amazing. We are in 2017. They have difficult time locating articles that we actually have, that we pay money for, et cetera, et cetera. And these are people who come to us. Even back in the 90s, when I was still in Boston, we thought of some literature as runaway literature. People couldn't access it. They would just move to the next article. And very few actually follow up and come to us and say, we have difficult time, how do we get that? And even fewer people go further than that. And then there are people who look for information, all these people who come to us with topical questions. So that's kind of the land of the land, the lay of the land. And I put together this small graph. So there are authors who at some point are readers, and there are readers who want to become authors in all these articles or publications. Of course, in biomedical area, we mostly talk about articles. You've heard so much today about reading and about, how to publish and what it takes to publish and the authorship. And what about the reader? Where the reader is, because reader has tremendous responsibility to actually vet the article, to actually assign credibility to the article. I have my favorite article that's titled Mistaken but Seminal. It's a history of an article who had a mistake in it, but then when people actually read it and decided to fix the mistake, it became a Nobel Prize winning research. We talk about reproducibility. How many times we heard this word today? Reproducibility. Everybody's talking about reproducibility, retracted publication. We assign responsibility to authors, to publishers, to editors, to peer reviewers. There are so many stakeholders. What about the readers? What responsibility do they carry? And the only way for us to look into it is try to understand that mysterious, almost mystical use. What is the use? What influences the use of the literature? And something that we've been talking a lot in the library, in my library in particular, what influences non-use? So in my library, any journal that is used or downloaded 400 times and less is subject for cancellation. That's just it. We've been doing it for a number of years. We started with 100 of cancellations. Nothing bad happened. We now think 400 is not a big number. It's all about numbers, right? And then we say, are we influencing non-use by doing that? Because the readers now have so many options. They have so little time. They definitely have an issue with accessibility. We talked about this a lot. They have so many choices. There is still very difficult to understand the text, just that text. It was so interesting to hear this first speaker of today. Believe it or not, it still works the old way. People look at the authors, where the authors are from. They look at words in the title. There are actually studies that analyze the words in the title. Yes, and they still look at the abstract, and that's what makes up their mind. And then there is an issue with the attention, the neuroscience of attention. And we'll talk a bit more about attention as we talk about the authors later on. So this is data we collected in a number of years in my library. It's top 20 journals cited by Columbia University authors. 3 years worth of data, 2013 through 15. Nothing much changes, right, guys? Look at this. We have so many journals. Remember the number I just said, the 400 downloads? Here is the truth. The Science, Nature, PNAS, still there. New England Journal of Medicine. Now, here's the interesting thing. Plus, it appeared in 2013 with 850 citations from Columbia authors. And then in 2014, it moved, I would say, meteorically up. And then 2015, it got so close to New England Journal of Medicine. Can you see that, guys? And then here's the verdict. We actually said it's going to push New England Journal of Medicine next year, and it did. Do you see that? So it's not just that the New England Journal of Medicine is cited less by Columbia authors. It's actually cited more, but not much more, and PLOS just moved up. Now, you see all these different colors there. So things up on top are pretty steady, cited pretty steady up on top. And then down below, you see those things in green. Those are titles that sort of moving in. They've been cited enough times to be in top 20 for 2 years in a row, or at least 2 years. And then there are titles in black. Those are titles that, you know, been cited to be in top 20 one time, but not more than one time. So we look at all these things, and we call it a three-legged stool. We look at cited behavior, we look at number of publications, and we look at download stats. We don't think any one of these numbers can really tell us a story. And if you are with me, I was talking about that mysterious use. What is the use? What constitutes the actual act of reading, which is so hard to see? Now, I also have one title there, Nature Communications. That's a new title on that list. It's an open access title. It just appeared. It moved right in 2016. So those are interesting movements that we observe. And we are actually trying to see what it means. So when my people bring this data to me, I say to them, what does it mean? What is the demographic of this happening? Can you tell me who are the people behind this interesting development? Now, just to give you a bit more data, so this is in comparison to journals. We have access to them. We look at these 3 sets of data together, and usually it all lines up. We love it when it all lines up. It doesn't always. That when it doesn't, it's red flag for us, and we look at it. But if you look at all of it together, it's really interesting. Of course, we look at other data, but I really wanted for you to see how it all aligns. And then, of course, the authorship challenges. There is that audience, the audience of readers. And of course, we all want to say we write for everybody, but we really write for specific readers, for specific group of people. Usually this is a peer community of people who need to read that article and assign a credibility to it, and hopefully do further research and incorporate it into a scientific record. And something that I really love about literature, and something that was put together probably by Isaac Newton when he invented the experimental article, it's a dialogue. And something that we forget, the reason people write is to start a dialogue, and they need to hear from the readers. We have all the technology in the world. We have Twitter for sure. how do we have that dialogue? People who write letters to us, how can we here respond and make that research better? And maybe that's the key to the whole issue with reproducibility. It's not a matter of writing something that's absolutely correct. Remember that first article that Isaac Newton actually wrote was not exactly correct. Many letters were written to discuss this with him. People took issue with that, and he corrected and improved, and eventually it's gotten to be his best book. So how do we start that dialogue? And again, there is all these issues with attention to it. So this is another top 20 for you. This is the number of publications by Columbia authors. Remember that three-legged stool? That's what it is. And again, this is something that's really interesting, the +1. It's kind of the runaway bride. It's out there. It's not just the first. Look how many publications. Now, the first year I saw that, I said to my knowledge management strategist, we need to know who these people are, because based on my experience, I think these are all junior people who just want to be published. We looked at it. Guess what? It wasn't. It was all kinds of people, and we spoke to those people. We said, what made you choose plus? Why plus? And together with the cited behavior, it makes for an interesting picture. And then again, you see in green the Nature Communications, the scientific reports, the eLife. All these titles are moving in. It makes for a different, really different entity. That is not to say that the titles up on top, they fluctuate, but they really stay the same. Yes, I'm the closer. So the view from the library, attention. We need to pay attention to attention, and really need to understand the readers. We need to pay attention to the readers. They are important stakeholders. And I want to say this act of reading, we are in 2017, how can we unpack that act of reading and really understand it? What does it mean to read? The article, the actual article, the way we have it, is still the same as Isaac Newton invented it. It is still the abstract, the background, the methods, the discussion, the results. Maybe it needs to be different altogether. Or maybe we need to adapt for a different type of reader. And that's basically what I'm saying, mindful of 1 minute I have left. And I just want to say it takes quite a few people to actually look at this data and to understand it. So credit goes to my staff. Thank you.